folks, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Sarah Hendricks, and I'm a program manager at Extended University for Science Outreach. And Anna Tuttle is presenting with me. She's the program manager at the Institute on Ecosystems, who is coordinating the inaugural Montana Climate Assessment. So welcome to the webinar, which is on climate science resources for educators. I want to thank you for attending the webinar today. We've got some really good questions ahead of time, so we actually tried to answer some of those questions in the webinar itself. But if you do have any questions, you can ask them in the box and we'll try and answer them during the webinar. And also some of the questions that we didn't address in the webinar, we'll address those directly. We're also going to be recording this webinar and making it available on the CLIME website later. And we did offer this webinar back in December, and after that we put together a list of the questions and answers that we got in that webinar. So we can circulate that as well as circulating some of the questions and answers that we get today. So Anna is going to be talking to you about the Montana Climate Assessment, and I'll be talking about some of the resources that accompany that. And we'll also be showing you some other places where you can get some existing STEM-related educational resources. We also have some kits to
go out there and get a little closer.
Oh, okay. We've just been told to get a little closer. So
This can be just you.
Yeah. Okay. It'll just be me for the moment. So we've got some kits and resources that we're going to give away. So stick around for that. And even though we've just focused in on me, I'm actually going to pass over to Anna now, who's going to talk to you more about the Montana Climate Assessment.
All right. Yes, thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to spend about 10 minutes telling you about the climate assessment, where we are in the process, what we've done. If you have any questions, again, please type them in and let us know. I'll start looking in this bottom right corner. If you have any more problems hearing or if I need to get closer, just let me know. So the Montana Climate Assessment. This is an assessment of, well, exactly what it says, climate in Montana. There are a lot of different aspects of climate in Montana. We could not cover them all in the beginning, in this first round, but we have tackled 4 chapters: general climate trends, forestry, water, and agriculture. And we hope in the future to continue working on an assessment with human health, fish and wildlife, tourism, economics, infrastructure, other topics that obviously are attainable or applicable to Montana as our climate changes. All right, so we've really aimed this at decision makers and stakeholders. Decision makers are everyone from water commissioners to tribal leaders, ranchers and farmers who make decisions on their own land, city mayors, other agency people, as well as stakeholders. All Montanans who care about water, are concerned about fires, are concerned about the state's economies of agriculture and forests. So there are some people who will use this assessment strategically to make decisions, and there are some who will use it as general information that they just want to be an informed citizen about. So one thing I like to start off with is talking about what climate is. Weather is what moves through on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, even annually. Climate is usually defined as weather patterns that persist for roughly 30 years or more. In our assessment, we do have some particular subjects that we touch on where we're talking in 15 to 20 years, but it's hard to have as much accuracy in that small of a time frame. With the longer the time goes on, the more accurate our projections can be, and we can say that certain things are going to happen. There have been 4 versions of a national climate assessment, and maybe you've seen them, maybe not. But the National Climate Assessment has done a pretty good job with Montana. They have indicated a future with warmer temperatures, intense drought, severe rainfall, and snow events, more heat waves, less snowpack in our mountains, which leads to less storage of water in our state, as well as more fires and forest diseases. However, if you can look at this little map, I know it's kind of a small picture, but this map of the United States, you can see the black boundaries that show Montana, and our region goes all the way down to southern Texas. So there are also problems with the National Climate Assessment being so large, so sweeping, that it's not informative enough on a small level for people to actually make decisions in the state. So what we wanted to do was take the National Climate Assessment and build on it. We wanted to build on the science, wanted to take the engagement and partnerships that were already created and further the effort. We wanted the assessment to be relevant to users. We wanted something accessible. So where we are right now, we have our assessment written. We have just gotten back public comment and peer reviews. We are doing edits. They're getting to our science writer at the end of this week. So we're getting very close to an actual published report, which is exciting. But we, more excitingly, this summer are going to be working on a website. So we're going to take all this information and try to present it in a way that is actually usable and more enjoyable than just reading a phone book that's this thick of just information, about RCPs and complicated climate information. We feel it's very important to be doing this work right now. One example of why it matters is agriculture. There are local adaptation strategies that can help farmers and ranchers stay in business. They can choose what varieties they want to plant. They can choose the date that they plant. They might think about weed control. Some weeds are going to expand, some are going to decrease. They need to know what's going to happen if they want to be able to keep their farm or ranch and be able to pass it down to future generations. They also want to know if they're going to be able to keep themselves in business. Another example, wildfires. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced summer wildfires and are noticing that they're increasing. They are increasing. They're also increasing in severity. Now, some of that doesn't have to do with climate change. Some of it has to do with management practices and other issues, but a lot of it does. And what we have found in terms of wildfires is that we will be experiencing more severe wildfires across the state continually over the next century. And here's how we're doing it. First of all, we're working with Montanans. This is a list of agencies in the state, in the West, and also nationally. But here's a list of stakeholders that we did listening sessions with in Montana. We tried to meet with as many people as we could who would give us quality information about what Montanans need to know about climate. And we also tried to get information about the most usable way to get this information to everyone. Again, we didn't want to just come up with that 1,500-page document. We wanted a website that has varying levels of depth so that we could have a researcher here on campus go find some specific information they're looking for. We also could have fifth graders looking at it at one level and seniors in high school looking at it at another level, and have farmers and ranchers or foresters looking at it at a totally different level. So that's going to be available in the document. We're really excited. And this group of people really helped us figure out the best way to do that. We're also doing it by climate region. I picked this silly little picture on the bottom because we tried to go with something that wasn't too big nor too small. So the entire state of Montana is roughly what the National Climate Assessment looked at, but it's too big. What's happening in Libby, Montana, climate-wise, is going to be very different from what's happening in Billings, Montana, climate-wise. So we wanted to divide the state. But at the same time, if we got too small, we would lose accuracy. You can't say what's going to happen in a 1 mile by 1 mile square in terms of climate. You might be able to with weather, again, a smaller period of time, but not with climate. So we broke it down into 7 different climate regions. And these regions run along county lines. It'll be pretty interesting. You can look at these with your schools and say, here's where we are. Here's what the projections are for our part of the state. personally get pretty excited about that. Not many states have done this. Montana's leading the way with this, and it hopefully will demonstrate a stronger ability to actually make decisions. Again, we're doing agriculture, forest, and water right now, as well as an overarching climate chapter. We do really want to touch on other things: infrastructure, fish and wildlife, human health, tourism, other topics that we hope we're able to cover in the future. And we're doing it with hard science. So we're taking data and we're projecting it forward. We've used climate models and historical data to look into the next century and project what's going to occur. It's a really interesting point to not use the word predict, just to use the word project. We can't predict, because that would mean we actually 100% know what's going to happen, and no one knows that about the future, about anything. So the term projection is generally what gets used, so you know, as you're talking about it in your classes. I think that these two graphs are really fascinating for working with students in terms of critical thinking. You can see that the green graph shows that precipitation in Montana has not changed much in the last century, but temperature, the purple graph, has. It's regularly gone up. Well, this green graph shows total precipitation. It does not show how that precipitation is coming to the state. So what we're experiencing is less snowpack, higher flood events, more late season drought in the summer, but then more rain in the fall. So that's different than what Montana's known for. Montana historically has had high snowpack that lasts into early summer. And these changes are having profound impacts across the state. But again, it's showing a flat line because the total precipitation is not changing. We're using projections, like I've said, not predictions. We're using representative concentration pathways, which are different emission scenarios. The National Climate Assessment and the United States Governmental Panel on Climate Change uses 4 of these. We've chosen to use 2. We've used the middle one, 4.5, and 8.5, which is a bit more of the extreme end. And that's what we've chosen to look at throughout our assessment. And that just has to do with how much things we think the atmosphere is going to change. We're also using scientific consensus. If I were to scroll back to that list of agencies we're working with, the Union of Concerned Scientists, and again, the National Climate Assessment, and scientists across the country and the globe have taken a look at this report and given us their reviews. We're also doing it with a lot of teamwork on outreach. We care a lot about the outreach aspect of this because it doesn't do any good to create it if no one uses it. So this is a picture I found of a facility built in Afghanistan for 34 million taxpayer dollars, but it was never used. We don't want that to happen with our assessment. So we believe that K-12 climate education is an important part of this outreach. It's a way to reach Montanans, especially in rural communities. We also, like you, know that students are the next generation of decision makers. They're going to be the next agency workers and nurses and legislators and all of those stakeholders that I talked about 8 minutes ago. There's also going to be a lot of opportunity coming out of this assessment. Each chapter has a section on what we don't know, calls for research, things that we should know if we want to have adequate science to make good decisions, but that the work hasn't been done yet. So as a lot of your students are coming into college, there's going to be opportunities in labs to do research and other work on climate science. There's also a global perspective. One of my, well, I shouldn't say it's my favorite, but one thing I find the most interesting that I've learned in this process over the last 2 years is how climate change around the globe affects us in Montana in ways that we might not think about. So in India, they eat a lot of lentils, but climate change is having an impact on agriculture there. They're not able to grow lentils in the amounts that they need anymore. So Montana has actually become one of the world's leading exporters of lentils, and we're exporting them to India. I did not know that before. Maybe some of you do, but I found that fascinating that climate change on the other side of the globe can have such a strong impact here in Montana. These are a bunch of education resources that I wanted to throw all up just in case you wanted to do a quick screenshot of them. But Sarah's going to be talking a lot more about the actual resources and things you can bring into your classroom. I do want to let you know that we'll have a website up and running in the middle of August before you start your school year in the fall. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to MSU and we can help with getting you resources and information about the state of climate science in Montana right now, as current as it gets. So that's my part. I wanted to see if anyone had questions before Sarah goes, but what I might do instead is hold questions till the end, and then we'll take them all at the end. Now Sarah's turn.
Okay. So we're just going to switch the presentation. And sorry I was quiet before, so I'm Sarah Hendricks and I'm a program manager at Extended University working on science outreach. So I'm going to introduce you to the CLIMB website and CLIMB program. So CLIMB is an acronym for Climate in My Backyard, and it's an umbrella program for outreach strategies which seek to enhance Montanans' awareness of and engagement with climate science that's happening in Montana. It's an educational outreach program, and it's the outreach arm of the Montana Climate Assessment. So what we've been trying to do while the Montana Climate Assessment is being prepared is to put together some climate-related resources for educators, which use research that's been done through the Institute on Ecosystems, which is a joint U of M and MSU institute. So there's a lot of really amazing research that's been done right here in Montana. And so the purpose of CLIMB is to engage and inspire students by connecting them with the climate science research that's been done right here in the Rocky Mountain West. There's some other functions for CLIMB as well. It increases students' awareness of STEM careers. It features some of the climate science research that's already underway, and it also engages graduate students and faculty in outreach programs in the state. So if you want to go on and take a look at the website, and if you need to contact or want to contact someone for more information, you contact either Susie Taylor, whose email is up there, or you can also email me about that. So on the website, we're featuring spotlights on what IOE researchers are doing. And we also have an interactive map where different researchers and grad students are uploading the projects that they're doing in Montana. And so you can go in and look at your area and see if there's any climate science research being done in that area. And if you'd like us to, if you see someone that's doing something interesting in your area and you'd like us to connect you, then you can contact us. We also have a resources section where you can find a variety of climate science related activities and resources, and they're all free for download. Some of them include videos, we have PowerPoint presentations, many of the activities are outdoors, and I'm going to introduce some of those to you now. I should say we've also got a survey on that website where we'd like to hear from you about different educational resources that you would like to see. So if you want to go ahead onto the CLIMB website under the Resources Center section, you can fill that out. So this is a lesson plan. It's called Scat Tracks and the Changing of Seasons. It's basically about elk grazing and phenology, and phenology is the greening of grass. And it was prepared by a master's student, and it's based on the research that she did here in the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. So students watch a presentation, and then they go outside and they undertake a scat gathering activity. So instead of actually, we're not going to send you the scat or advise that you use the scat, but we actually use Jolly Ranchers to represent the scat, and we put them out on transect lines, and then the students will collect them. The different colours represent different times that the grass green, and the students collect that scat. They work out how the elk are migrating, and then they also extend the learning by looking ahead to the future and seeing how climate change may have affected that elk migration. And they have a chance to discuss climate change at that point. So we do have a kit and the lesson plan that goes along with this activity. If you want to stick around to the end, we're going to give away some of that. Another one that we've developed, which is based on a grad student's research, is called Sharing the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem. This is a really cool lesson plan because it introduces students through an active strategy game, and you can see the students here doing it outside. You could do it outside, you can do it inside as well. Basically, the students get divided into different interest groups who are sharing the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. So they're wildlife conservation groups, ranchers, home developers, and wildlife. And each of the student groups has to mark off a certain number of land chips. The catch is that some of the groups can move faster than others. For example, elk, they can move really fast across the landscape versus a rancher who's more sedentary in this game in particular. But elk can have all their land chips stolen from them. So it's a good way for students to talk about how different stakeholder groups can share and come up with strategies for how they could manage that environment better. So it's good about, sometimes it can get frustrating for the students, but it's a really good outside activity they can do to talk about balancing needs. Colony collapse is it's a recording and a lesson plan, and it was actually based on some work that a grad student presented at the Teen Science Cafe, which we hosted here in Bozeman last year. So the students do this activity at the same time that they're watching the recorded video, and it introduces them to colony collapse disorder. Colony collapse disorder has many different variables that can influence it, and as Alex goes through the talks, he introduces some of those stresses, and those stresses can include disease, climate, etc. The students take out a certain number of blocks from a Jenga game. So the Jenga game represents the colony, and as they take the blocks out, there's more stress put on the colony. And at the end of the activity, some of the Jenga games or the colonies have collapsed and others haven't. So it gives the students an opportunity to discuss then why some colonies collapse and some don't. And this is kind of a real life example because they're still trying to figure out exactly why some colonies collapse and some don't. It's really variable. Another lesson plan activity that is also based on a teen science activity is how do scientists collect data, and it's a recorded talk which is called It's Tough to Be Weak in Montana's Changing Climate, and that's based on Madison Nixon's research. She's in the Land Resources and Environmental Sciences department here at MSU. So students watch a recorded talk by Madison, and then they undertake a sampling activity. It's really important for students to learn this sampling technique that scientists use so that they know that when they go out into a forest, for example, or a field, and they look at weed species of trees, that they don't count every single tree, that they actually take samples. And so what students do in this activity is they take a representative sample of fake flowers. So you can see the girl in the picture here is taking fake flowers. So one group takes 2 flowers and other groups will take 8. And from that, they can calculate the species diversity of that population, and why taking more samples is usually more representative of the actual population, but that there's limitations to the number of samples that they can take. So this lesson plan and the video are available for download on the CLIMB website, but we also, when we were looking to develop the kit that goes along with this, we actually found that fake flowers can be really expensive, especially when you have to buy 150 of them, or if you don't have access to a Michael's or a Joann's in your town. So what we did is we actually developed 2 card sets, which you can download from the website, and they accompany the activity, and you can use these, they're basically like playing cards that you can download, put them in the bag, and instead of using the fake flowers, you can use this representative sample from the playing cards. So those are some of the resources that we have on the CLIMB website now. But we don't just have resources there for K-12 students. We've actually got some resources and information for adult learners as well. And one of them is a recording of an online course that we hosted over the winter. And it's basically a series of webinars that we recorded. 4 of the authors of the Montana Climate Assessment presented on the 3 chapters, which was agriculture, water quality, and forestry, and also sorry, I'm just reading some of the comments down here. Oh, we're good. And also on the climate assessment itself. So we're going to just take a little break right now and do a giveaway. And I have one of the kits from the Elk Scats. So we have the beautiful lesson plan and some of the flags and some Jolly Ranchers as well. So Anna, did you want to?
Yeah. Are we doing one now? Or other giveaways right now too, Sarah?
Just one.
Just one. Okay, I've got it. Put all your names in a hat. Well, I balled them up and put them on the table. And I got that one for Nikki Bailey. So Nikki, congratulations, and we will be in touch and get this to you.
See if that can fix it, because apparently we're having some problems with the volume. So hopefully that, hopefully you can hear me a bit better now. So congratulations, Nikki. We'll get that sent out to you. I have some other resources that I just wanted to quickly show you. Exploring ecosystems is it's a full curriculum. So there's 5 different lessons that are aimed at grades 3 to 7. And they cover 4 different areas: ecosystems, biodiversity, wildlife ecology, and climate change. And they there's a lot of outdoor activities that you can do with your students right there, looking for signs of life in your schoolyard. So this one, Exploring Ecosystems, is also available on the CLIMB website. And I actually do have some paper copies. If people are interested, then you can please email me after and we can get some of those sent out to you. This one is a full curriculum. And just a quick plug for the Science Montana database. Oh, good. I'm glad the sound's better. Sorry that it was kind of quiet at the beginning. So Science Montana is a database of all the STEM lesson plans that we have that have been created in the Montana University system, all in one place. So all of the other lessons that I talked about today and activities, you're going to be able to find all of them on Science Montana. They cover activities in 4 main science areas: earth science, life science, physical science, and spatial science. You can kind of see down the bottom there. But what's really neat about Science Montana is that you can really refine your search by subject area by using keywords, and also by audience type. So, for example, if you wanted to look for climate resources for K2, then you have the option when you're going in and searching to refine it, and it will bring up all the activities that are appropriate for K2 that are related to climate. So Science Montana, that's the web address there, sciencemontana.org. UTRC stands for Using Technology to Research After Class, and it was a Montana State University and Montana Institute on Ecosystems project to engage Montana kids in science explorations relating to water and carbon science in their own play yards. So youth in after-school programs used environmental sensors to record and compare schoolyard measurements to improve STEM understanding. And there was also a number, while the project itself, the testing of it is complete, there were a number of lesson plans that were tested and piloted in after-school programs in Belgrade, Montana, and they're available for download on the UTRC website. And some of those lessons cover subjects such as weather and climate, what is the carbon cycle, lessons that are particularly relevant to climate change. Many of you may remember this expedition, the Everest Education Expedition. It happened in 2012, and it was to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the first American ascent of Mount Everest. So students could follow along with the climbers and basically take weather measurements, see what the climbers in the base camp were seeing as well. And while the expedition itself is now complete, many of the resources are still very current and very useful. And they're available for download on the Everest Expedition page, which is here, www.montana.edu/Everest. And they're aimed at grades 4 to 8, but there's opportunities to extend the learning, and they cover areas such as glaciology, climate science, geology, biodiversity, culture, and more. So each of these lessons is about 45 minutes to an hour long. So that's the Everest expedition. And we're going to put together, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by all the information that we're throwing at you, we are going to put together a list of all these websites and where you can get this information afterwards. And we'll also make this webinar available on the Climb website as a recording. So I is Extreme Yellowstone Expedition, and while it's not directly related to climate change, it does help teach students about some important scientific measurements and ways to take field measurements right here in our own backyard. So that's tbi.montana.edu/I. Just going to take another break here and just have a look if there is some questions that.
Oh yeah, no, I just looked. Most of the questions I saw had to do with volume.
Oh,
but let me double check. I'm glad it helped. Hopefully on the recording you'll be able to hear more. Again, if you want to know more about the climate assessment itself and some of the details, the webinar that was mentioned is really great. The 4 chapter authors speak for 45 minutes and answer questions about their chapter and emerging findings. So I don't see any questions.
Okay, so we had, just looking at the questions that we got before the webinar, and a lot of them were to do with available resources. So hopefully we've answered some of those questions. How climate change will affect precipitation rates in Montana, and I think that Anna covered that. And then we did get one question. Did you want to answer that one, Anna?
No, I do want to say one thing about the precipitation rates. So, because I forgot that we had a question about that. But precipitation rates, again, will stay about the same. Some of the details, though, is that we are looking, for the most part, again, it depends on climate regions, but at lower snowpack and the same amount of droughts that we've had, but their severity might change and increase. So, same number of droughts, longer period of time. Another thing is that water flow, um, like the water peak, will be shifting earlier into the spring. That'll affect, there's a lot of laws around irrigation and water rates, and some of those will probably have to be revisited, and that's actually not easy to revisit because a lot of that also has to do with fish and wildlife, and sometimes those things are at odds. There's going to be a lot of policies that will go along with decision making, and especially around water. That's going to be really a hot topic, I think, in the next 50 years or sooner, maybe in the next 10. But in terms of precipitation, there will be a lot of information in the assessment. The chapter on water is predominantly about that, and it is about 200 pages, I think, long. So you could get all the information you want.
But you are pulling out some key messages, is that right?
Yep. Again, when you go to the website, you can see everything at different varying levels of depth. So you could just look at our key messages in the chapter, or which will be bullet points similar to what the National Climate Assessment has done. Or then you can read about a paragraph, full page, or you can reference to the full report. There was another question. I don't know about that one. One thing I did want to point you to, one of the questions we had was how to create curriculum around renewable resources other than solar. And we don't have curriculum on that right now, but the MSU's Energy Research Institute does have some information about solar and other renewable resources, and we can add that to our list of websites to send you to that we could possibly get some information. You could, and we might look at it as well because it's a really great question, and we could look at that for future curriculum. Oh, the spectrum? Oh. Environmental Educators Association? We're talking about other resources around solar. We'll have a discussion about it, and we'll add it to our notes because
lots of good stuff.
We think there is lots of good stuff out there.
We'll find it for you, and we will add it to our list of resources. It's not stuff that we developed ourselves. We can certainly pull that out for you. So we're going to give another kit away. This one is, I was talking earlier about the What Makes Bees Sick and the Jenga games and the video. So we're actually going to give away 3 Jenga games that accompany that lesson plan. So Anna, why don't you go ahead and
here we go.
Draw the next person.
Anne Wickham.
Anne, congratulations.
There you go.
Thank you. So I believe we have everyone's email address that we can just pull out. Yippee, Anne says. So we'll get 3 of those Jenga games out to you, and also one of the lesson plans that goes along with it. And I think that we're pretty much wrapped up. The only other thing I just wanted to quickly talk about is that we did get some questions about citizen science projects, and I wanted to point you to some of these. While we don't have a lot of citizen science that's going on through MSU at the moment, I just wanted to point you to some of these resources that do. So SciStarter is a really good database of citizen science projects that you can search. And again, you can actually use their project finder to find citizen science activities that are suitable for children. Some of them are US-wide, and there's some really good ones that you can get involved with that. So that's the SciStarter. GLOBE is a worldwide science and education program, and they have a number of citizen science projects as well. For example, you can send in observations that help scientists track changes in the clouds and can verify NASA satellite data. So that's a really cool one. AdventureScience.org is actually a local Montana-based nonprofit that was started by Greg Trenish. They leverage the skills of the outdoor community to collect scientific data. For example, on microplastics is one that they've got going at the moment. And while some of them may not be appropriate for younger kids, it could be worth having a look through there and seeing if there's anything that you could participate in locally. iNaturalist is an app that you can download, and it'll help you identify different animals. For example, bugs. We did bugs in the schoolyard, and then you can upload that information, share your findings, and discuss with other people who are also observing things and developing kind of a database of that information. And Bird Sleuth is kind of similar. We do actually have an activity kit to go along with that, which we do have available for loan. So Bird Sleuth is Birds and Citizen Science, and it's a program of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So if you wanted to borrow the kit, you can either get in touch with us, or if you wanted to buy the kit yourself, they're $90. But you can also visit the Bird Sleuth website, and they have a lot of free resources as well, so that if you don't want to spend $90 to buy the kit. And while, again, this isn't directly related to climate change, it does teach kids about noticing changes in their environment, for example, bird species, and it does add to that knowledge about how birds are reacting to climate change. So those are some of the citizen science information that I pulled
out. If you have any questions, now is the time. You can type them in bottom right corner, questions or comments. And I
just saw that Nikki asked for our contact information, so here it is, my information. If you want to find out more about outreach or ask me questions about anything that I've presented today on any of these activities, sarah.hendricks@montana.edu. If you're interested in finding out more about the Montana Climate Assessment, then you can contact Anna Tuttle. There you go. So I just want to thank everyone very much for coming along today, and for all your questions beforehand, and for filling out our poll questions as well. And we hope to hear from you again soon. If you have any questions, then please get in touch with either myself or Anna. And thank you, and have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you very much.